back to Rating the List, where we review, discuss, and reimagine popular movie lists objectively. We're your hosts. I'm Brad.
And I'm Jerry. And today we're going to talk about the number 14 on Brad's top 20 favorite movies. So number 14 is the Before trilogy: Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight. Respectively released in 1995, 2004, and 2013. Directed by Richard Linklater and written by Richard Linklater and Kim Krasin. Edited by Sandra Eclair and starring Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. This story is they meet in Europe at age 23. Meeting in Europe at age 23, Selena and Jesse spend one day together that creates a life-changing bond that follows them through reconnection, love, and the trials and tribulations of a long-term adult relationship. So we had watched the first two movies for our romance list.
Mm-hmm.
And so I watched the third movie because I hadn't seen it in a while. Ever since I've known Brad has always talked about these movies and how much he loves them. One, it's got a love story. He's a sucker for a good love story. It's very realistic. It's, lots of conversation. It's mostly these two people meeting each other and having such a good connection that they basically talk the whole time, this whole day. That's what they're doing. They're walking and talking. I think that dialogue and language and words that people say and stuff is intriguing to Brad. It is a great epic love story. But it's not in a love story as in it starts raining and she realized, it's not like a romantic comedy, as you would say.
Yeah.
It's really about the nature of how people fall in love and how sometimes it works for after a long period of time, sometimes it doesn't. In the first movie, we first meet these characters. They're 23 years old. They're kind of trying to figure out what they are in life and what they're doing.
They're both students.
They're both students. They're very young. They spend this day together, and then they're like, okay, Jesse is a very, very philosophical person. And he is always questioning things. And she is, in a way...
I think she's more realist.
But she's very realistic, and she's very grounded.
Yeah, I was going to say, she's way more grounded than he is.
Yeah, so he says to her, he says, okay, well, if we, let's plan to meet together in another 10 years in this exact spot. And if
it wasn't 10, it was less.
5? Was it 5?
I feel like it was the next year. We'll meet next year.
Was it the next year?
It was. I can't. It's been a while since I've seen the first one, but they agree. Like they're they basically do an affair to remember thing. Like we're gonna meet on the Empire State Building kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the second one picks up, where that didn't happen.
That didn't happen, and now they're
31.
They're 31, and he's written this book about their experience together, and they're in Paris. Yeah. So they're in Paris.
The first one is in
like Prague or something.
It's in Prague, and then the second one's in Paris, and then the third one is in Greece.
Yeah. So the second one, they're in Paris, and he's at a book signing, and she comes in, and then they start talking again. Now he's married with a kid.
Yeah.
She's got this career thing going on, but they, again, pick up right where they left off.
But it's a little different this time. One, they're older.
Yes.
And two, life has happened. 9 years of, life track has happened.
Yes.
And now they've got to pick that up where they still have this connection with each other. But now there's a weariness. And now there are the kinds of complications you have as you get older. And they've got to navigate through that and what happens, and the ending. It's on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
One of my favorites of all time, by the way.
Yeah, she's like, he's supposed to get back on a plane to meet his family,
Mm-hmm.
and they've spent all day together, and she's cooking him dinner, I think.
Yeah,
And
they're just hanging out in her apartment.
And she's like, "You're gonna miss your plane," and he's like, "I know," and that's kind of how it ends.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay,
What happened?
What happened?
And then 9 years later.
You get
him again.
We get him again. They're on a vacation in Greece with their 2 kids. They have twin daughters.
Yeah.
And their son was there visiting them for the summer, and he went back home to be with his mom. And they're, like I said, they're vacationing. Again, we get into, a lot has happened with them in their relationship.
Yeah.
And it's not all rainbows and unicorns.
Now they're partners. Now they've got children of their own.
Yes.
And they've got to deal with everything kind of life throws at you. So the thing I love about these movies, and this is my cheat, I didn't throw, a Harry Potter size number of movies at you, but this is my cheat. If I had to pick one, honestly, I'd probably pick Sunset, the middle one.
Okay.
If I was forced to nail it down to one.
Okay.
But I think just as I feel like it's one story.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like it's one long movie.
Yeah.
That's in 3 parts. That's shot appropriately, chronologically apart. I mean, all these movies are 9 years apart, and the stories are 9 years apart. So the actors themselves are 9 years older in each of these movies. Mm-hmm. So you get to see them in these different, you buy when you're, if you've been 23, you've kind of had one of these like whirlwind things where you meet someone and it's just super exciting and great and all that, and you can imagine, if it's never happened to you, you can at least imagine meeting someone like this and having this kind of day with this person that's magical, to the point where 9 years later this dude writes a book about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think personally, I think I like the third movie the best. Mm. Maybe it's because I'm older, but to me that seems the most real, because I
think they're all real.
They are, but this one is like, one thing that's great between the 2 of them is that they communicate. Mm-hmm. They may not communicate super well at first.
Mm-hmm. They talk everything out.
They talk everything through, everything out. They don't bullshit each other.
Yeah, that's the thing I like most about the third movie, is they clearly have stuff going on to the point where they may not make it. Mm-hmm. But they are both not going to go down without at least talking it through. Like, mm-hmm. if they don't make it, it's not going to be from a lack of trying.
Right.
Like, they talk everything through. And, that starts to happen. And, the first movie is more about, the talking is more about them getting to know each other. Mm-hmm. The second one is more about what the hell happened and what do we do now? And the third one is, we've been in the trenches for a while. Is this what we both want? Do we need to make a change? There's a lot of life stuff, and I think it's appropriate for every age that they are.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Early 20s, early 30s, basically, late 30s, 40. Mm-hmm. In the third one, all of it makes sense. It's all age appropriate. It's just,
and they know each other so well.
The chemistry of these 2 is just off the chart.
Yeah, they have really good chemistry with each other, and the characters themselves, they know each other so well.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense. Like, if you've been with anyone that long,
yeah.
I mean, we finish each other's sentences.
Yeah, and you know how someone is going to, mm-hmm. like, I would know how Brad would react to something, and she knows it too. Mm-hmm. And there's this thing, the whole underlying thing of the whole third movie is Jesse has spent the whole summer with his son, and she's spent the whole summer with him too. He had a great time. Jesse takes him to the airport, sees him off on the plane, and
realizes that he's going to spend probably the next 9 months not seeing his son because
where they live.
They
live in Europe.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they get in the car. You know, the twins are in the back sleeping. And he's kind of bummed out. And she's like, "What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "I'm really missing..." All he says is, I miss him already. Like, I miss my son. And she's already going, "He wants me to move to Chicago."
Right.
And so she's like, "I'm not doing that. I'm not moving to Chicago." And he's like,
I didn't even bring it up.
And so it's like, it's really realistic. And
it takes a while for you to figure out the why. She's not being like unreasonable. Like, she has this fairly substantial job offer to work for the French government.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a while for that to come out, which I think is also realistic. Like,
yeah.
Like, so, you know, it's, you know, like, their communication is all about, like, pulling little pieces out.
Mm-hmm.
And finally kind of, once everything's kind of on the table, that's when they're the most effective. And that's when they are not, you know, in that movie, they're kind of at the point where, you know, they know how to use words as weapons against each other because they've been together for so long, and that happens a little bit. And, like, she's already, like, anticipating he's going to bring this thing up, and she's already, like, defensive about it, instead of kind of stepping back was when he hasn't said it yet.
Uh-huh.
And giving herself time. Okay, how do I formulate a positive response to this? Because I do like his son, and I understand where he's coming from. It's no. So you get the sense that maybe she's made some, you know, concessions in their relationship to accommodate him, and she's kind of done with it. They don't really ever go into it, but you get that sense.
Yeah, and she knows, like, they don't come out and say this, but she knows how it makes him super jealous when she says, "Oh, your son and I talked about this," and then she didn't tell him about it. Mm. Their closeness, I think he's jealous of, and he gets very upset about it, and I think she knows that, and kind of uses that a bit to get under his skin.
She needles him with stuff a lot.
Yeah, and so at the end, you know, they've had this, it's just like a big drawn out fight, basically, for like this whole movie, and at the end, they kind of smooth things over, but again, they leave it.
You don't know.
You don't know. Do you think that they ended up moving to Chicago to be with his son?
I always go back and forth on this. There's sometimes I think that they do, and sometimes I think that they don't. I'm like you. It depends on what day you ask me.
So I'm asking you today.
Today, I'm gonna say they didn't, because I'm not in like the the current like mental state of the world. I'm gonna say that they didn't. And I think that they didn't, and I think he's going to be resentful of it.
Right, but I think he
also understands why.
Yeah, but I think he gave up because he doesn't want to lose her. Mm-hmm. So he just stopped talking about it, and then they didn't end up going.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I think happened.
I agree with you. I think that too. The thing I really love about Richard Linklater as a filmmaker is he does these really interesting experiments where he uses true chronological time. So, like, most of the time, if you have a time jump in a movie, the time that's happened in the real world doesn't match what's happened in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, in these, there's literally 9 years between all of these.
That's like that other movie he did. What was it? Boyhood.
Boyhood. That's a super interesting movie. So he and Ethan Hawke are very close friends and collaborators for a very long time. And, you know, basically this movie Boyhood, he shot it over the course of like years and years and years. And everyone that's in the movie plays themselves at a certain point in time.
Mm-hmm.
There's not one of these things where there's one kid who's the child and one who's the same kid when he's a teenager. It's the same kid.
Mm-hmm.
So they signed up for this long-term thing, and they're really like shooting like just a few weeks a year.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie took literally like over a decade to make.
Crazy.
And everyone kind of signed up for it, and it's a really, really interesting, time capsule. It's an okay movie,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just really interesting filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because so many things could happen. Like when you're shooting over the course of what if one of the character, the actors passed away, or say that kid, when he was,
risky.
when he was like, what was he? I think he was like 7 when they started the movie,
Yeah.
and he was like 17 when they were done. Like, what if sometime in between he's just like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
It's like,
You kind of have to.
but so it's like, it's a risk.
Yeah.
An interesting one. I have read that they have discussed making a 4th one, but they just have never come
Of the before movies?
but they just have never agreed on.
When was it? It was 2003.
It's
Now
already,
would be the time.
well, it's already passed. I mean, it's already
Oh.
been 9 years.
Oh.
They would have to do a different time jump, but they just couldn't come up with an idea.
Yeah, I think it would be sad and depressing, to be honest.
I
'Cause
think
I don't think they make it.
maybe, I don't know. I mean, I mean, a lot of things could happen, but I mean, the 2 actors and Richard Linklater, the 3 of them are apparently very good friends and
Oh.
really good collaborators, and they talk about this stuff fairly regularly. They just haven't. The ideas that they've come up with, they've all kind of been meh.
Yeah.
So, I mean, will we ever see it? I don't know. I think there, it might work better if you wait years down the road and have them not together anymore, and maybe they're like at the high school graduation of the girls or something like that, or his son's getting married or something. And they've
Yeah.
been apart, they're estranged, and they come back together and the spark's there, and they have these conversations, and it's like, do we give this a shot again?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because clearly we can't like get each other, we're under each other's skin. I think there's ways they could do it. I think it'll be interesting if they ever do.
Okay, I scored it a 62.4.
Okay.
Reason being is I find these movies very interesting. They're not on my top 100.
Mm-hmm.
For what they are, I think they're very well done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my score. If you have seen these 3 movies or are now interested, please leave a comment for us and give us a like. We'd appreciate it. If you'd like to talk to us directly, please do so at ratingthelist@gmail.com. But I think that's it for now. I'm Jerry.
I'm Brad.
And we're Rating the List. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.